Welcome to Mac Talk, a Middle Tennessee podcast from Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm your announcer, Kennedy Galpin. Today's episode is brought to you by the Mac's very own Heritage Music Series. Heritage Music, concerts spanning genres and generations.
Thank you, Kennedy, and welcome everyone to Mac Talk. I'm your host, John Pitcher. We like to think of the Mac as a cultural town square where we encourage everyone to be their creative best. Our guest today is a real Renaissance man. Steve Wariner is well known to country music fans as one of the genre's most successful entertainers. But Steve is also a gifted visual artist whose exhibition, The Flip Side, runs June 21st to July 26, 2026 at the Mac. Kennedy, you've had a chance to see some of his paintings. What do you think?
I really like them. They're very impressionistic to me, kind of like Monet. I just really like them. They kind of have like a fuzzy kind of feeling to them in a way. Yeah. None of the lines are really defined.
They're watercolors, and he kind of describes them as washy.
Yeah, that's a great way to put him, actually.
Yeah, it is a good way. Well, and what I like about him is his range, because he seems to be equally comfortable doing everything from representational art to abstracts. And
yes.
I love all of it. I mean, I love landscapes and seascapes. I love the musician art that he does because obviously he is himself a musician. But I really especially love the abstracts. There's one in particular, Shemya, that is just this exploration in sort of contrasting colors of blue and red and white. And it's just really extraordinary. Shemya being, I believe, one of the Aleutian Islands, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just his, as you would say, as impressionism is his sort of abstract impression of that island, how it made him feel.
Interesting.
Isn't that cool?
One of my favorites, I would say, is Misty Golden Gate. It just kind of really does have that fuzzy feeling to it.
Isn't it very misty?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can almost, it's like watching the bridge sort of suddenly appear out of the mist.
Right,
Isn't
exactly.
It?
Or like after a foggy day, it's beautiful in a way. But another one that I really like is Getting It. It's a man riding a horse. And it just really has that impressionist feeling of it, like his take of a Claude Monet of a man riding a horse. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, he has been really turning heads and surprising people with the sheer originality and amazing technique of this art.
I would say so.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and introduce him and let's talk to him about it. Steve Wariner is one of country music's best-known entertainers. Over the course of his long career, he scored 14 number one hits and earned 4 Grammy Awards and 11 Grammy nominations. But Steve is also a gifted visual artist who creates work in oil, acrylic, watercolor, and mixed media. His exhibit, The Flip Side, runs from June 21 to July 26, 2026 at the Mac. We're thrilled he's here to speak with us today about his parallel passion for painting. Steve Wariner, welcome to Mac Talk.
Oh, thank you so much.
It is so good to have you here. Well, you are incredibly well known as a musician, but what I'm wondering is how did you find your way into being a visual artist and a painter?
My father was a very creative guy. He played music, he was a fiddler, Kentucky fiddler, played guitar, electric guitar, played all styles of music, but he wrote songs and he painted. I saw him as a kid. I would see him doodle. He'd make a letter for us small kids. We had 5 kids, 4 boys and a girl, my siblings. But he would draw, my dad would draw like a Y or a letter and then turn it into something. And it blew me away as a little kid. He was just so creative. And then as we got older, my siblings, my brother Kenny, I remember him watercoloring when I was very small, and I was like, I want to do that. That looks so fun, So I started being in love with watercolors at a really early age, and music about the same time. I fell in love with music through my father, and that was in Indiana, a little farm town just north of Indianapolis.
And you have another brother, though, who's actually a famous visual artist.
David he's a lot of people have seen his work, may not know it, but in ads and magazines and things, illustrating. Great illustrator. In Nashville, for many years working as an illustrator, and so I really admired him and looked up to him. And he did it the right way. He went to art school and did the whole thing. He went to Heron School of Art and studied. I was always impressive to me. I just took off as a bass player and went on the road.
Right.
But he, this really a very artistic family, I believe. All my sister not so much, but all my brothers were musical. Everybody played. And I truly thought every family was that way till I got up to a certain age, and I went, oh, this family, they don't play music or do art. It's like I thought everybody did that. So I'm really grateful and lucky that I came up in a very versatile family,
Yeah. Well, to me, that explains a lot. I interviewed the great cellist Yo-Yo Ma once, and he once told me that, it takes a generation or two for a family to produce a professional musician or artist, which is another way of saying, the people who are really the great artists out there, oftentimes they've come from some sort of artistic family.
I see that.
So that it's like, as you said, it becomes a revelation to you later in life that, not every family is like this. Not every father has a band that rehearses in my house.
They're setting up amps and guitars in our living room.
Right.
My dad even had a little tape recorder. I was real small, and I remember my dad setting up microphones and recording when I was. Tape recording probably was not. It was still in its infancy back there. It had to be, because that was in the early '60s. And I love it that my dad. It wasn't a great, probably wasn't an incredible high-tech tape recorder, but it was amazing that my dad was into recording, even then. And I still have a few of those recordings around, so.
Yeah. One of the best piano players here in Nashville is the jazz player Lori Meacham. She and her husband founded the Nashville Jazz Workshop. And her background, I think she's from Indiana, but her background reminds me a little bit of yours. I think her father owned a music store.
Oh.
And she would actually have big band rehearsals in her house.
Oh my gosh.
So it's kind of like, well, yeah, no wonder you can just sit down at the piano and play anything, because to
natural.
You, that's just what family life was.
Totally. I remember the first time I went to this kid's house, I remember this vividly, and this kid was named Dennis Byerly, and he had lived in Peru. His family moved, I think his father worked there for a while, but they came back. And I remember I went to his house one time. This was third grade or fourth. And I remember looking around, and I thought, where are the guitars? And it was really, and our house was lived in. There were 5 kids, and by that I mean it was, when you walked in our house, there were a lot of kids there. But he was like an only kid. It was so pristine, and I was like, this is real sterile almost, no offense, but it was.
But was he happy?
Yeah, exactly. Did he have a good time? An only kid. And if he's, I haven't even thought of him for 100 years, but that was, that's the first time I remember thinking, a house without music. The arts. I'm not sure about that one,
Your house had visual arts and music. You have an exhibit coming here called The Flip Side. It opens June 21st. It runs through July 26th. It's an amazing exhibit. You've got a broad range of media that you now work with. You work with oils and acrylics and watercolors and mixed medias. I was sitting down going through the program with our announcer, Kennedy Galpin. Kennedy's a visual artist. She's a graphic artist. She's really a wonderful, anime artist and video game artist. And we were looking through your stuff, and she was amazed at the technique, and I was too. Wow. And if you do all sorts of different things, but if there's a common denominator that we were coming to, it was that the execution of these pieces is all very, very high. You are that, and I guess that doesn't surprise me. I think with you, it's probably a character trait. You're a virtuoso guitar player, and that's what you do. You having technical polish is just part of who you are in whatever art you approach. And of course, you've been doing it all your life, so it's more natural for you than it would be for other people. But even someone like Kennedy, who's got some training, is really admiring your techniques. That
so
just
nice.
makes me wonder. You must have some formal training. What is your formal training? I know you did some stuff in high school, though.
I do not have like what you would just out and out say formal training, but I did learn a lot from my brother. But also, I had a great, and we talked about this, John, but I had a wonderful teacher in high school named Gordon Morrison that was just really I mean, I could not be any luckier to have a wonderful guy like that took me under his wing, and he would throw me his car keys and say, go out and paint today. And I'd take his car from high school. I just got my license, and I'm driving this big Oldsmobile around my town by myself. And I'd go out to Potter's Bridge, our old, it's now closed. You used to be able to drive across this old covered bridge, and I'd go sit on White River Bank and draw and paint, and while everybody else was in school, and I could have taken advantage of him so much and just rode around town or done whatever, but he trusted me. But he was really a wonderful teacher, and he took me to Ball State University and showed me the campus, and really he knew I loved music as well. And but I don't know, I think I think you hit on something, that it's like my music. I've always tried I can never let go of my music when I write or play or make a record. I've been lucky. I think it spills over from making records, I think, in a lot of ways, because I've been so lucky to work with Chet Atkins in the studio. I've worked with Jimmy Bowen. I've worked with Tony Brown and some great producers and I equate it to making a painting, to know the right place to let go of it and step away. But I don't know. I think as far as that part of it, the letting go and knowing when to quit, I guess the tenacity of I'm not there yet. It's not good enough. Or I'm not afraid to go, okay, I'm starting over on this watercolor. I've threw away a lot of good paper, doing watercolors. But as far as technique and stuff, I think a lot of it is through either Mr. Morrison, Gordon, or my brother, David, as far as techniques. But I like to think of myself as being a good learner too. I mean, I'm always curious, and if there's any artists around, I'm watching closely, and I'm going to sponge it up and take something away from it and learn how to do it myself. I'm real curious. I want to know how to do it, and I'll try anything. I'm not afraid to, like music, I'll do anything in the studio. Undo is a wonderful thing in the studio,
Yeah.
It makes you fearless, and the way it is especially with oils. I was so afraid of oils for years, but that's the undo button is there. If you want to paint right over it, you can do it. And unlike watercolors, but I don't know. I picked up techniques. I never had really any formal training, but
sounds like you did have a little bit, and it sounds to me like what you did is you came up the old-fashioned way, which is the way artists did for centuries, which is the journeyman apprentice.
Totally,
approach.
That's exactly it. Yep.
With your high school teacher, with Gordon Morrison, and then it was a matter of just practicing it.
I think so.
You know what? I mean, today we have people who go to college to do that, but in the old days, the great artists, that's not how they did it. Whether they were composers or visual artists, and it seems like you did everything that way. And you know what? A lot of people who do it that way end up being the best creative artists.
Well, and it goes back to music for me, because I watched like my dad, he just totally played by ear. He never read music. He never, he just did it. One day he just said, hey, I'm going to play, I got an offer to play this, whatever. And he just did it. It's like, I love that. Just, hey, they want a band, I'll put one together. Let's go play. And I'll play, so I don't know, my brother, I go back to my brothers, but my brother David is so talented, and he pushed me a lot. We played these games, drawing games and so forth. I mean, I cannot remember a time when we didn't push each other. He would sculpt something and bring it in, and hey, look what I did. I made this out of a whatever, and I would try it. And then I'd do something, he'd go, how'd you do that? And we were always pushing each other, and I learned so much from him. And Gordon Morrison was that way as well. We were, not to go back on that, but he always would give me really good assignments. I want you to make this for me. I want this. And the very first piece of art I think I ever sold was Gordon Morrison bought. It was a drawing I did, and he bought it for $20, and I about fell over. I was a sophomore in high school, and he bought or freshman maybe. But he wanted to buy this drawing I did, and I think he knew that I didn't have any money. So
did he give you a $20 bill?
Yeah, he gave me.
I bet you wish you had framed that.
I wish I had that, but I remember I drew. It was a really. I remember it in my mind being a really cool pencil drawing, but it was one that a lot of value, because I remember a lot of pressure on getting those darks, but I remember he really liked it, and he says, I'll give you $20 for that. And I go, sold, because I had $2 in my pocket probably. But anyway, those lessons, and I have learned a lot though over the years. YouTube is a wonderful thing. I've really followed and studied with some great painters. I've studied with a guy, I didn't know him, but I studied with a guy from, I think we talked about this, but his name was Stuart Davies, and he's a great artist, lives in Paris, but he's from England, and really does a lot of landscape, English style type landscapes, almost tonalism too in a lot of ways, not many colors. I learned a lot about oil painting from this guy, and he don't even know it, but I studied right with him for a long time. And then some of his paintings are almost abstract, but almost abstract landscapes, which you'll see in my work, as you know.
Let me ask you, because you do landscapes and seascapes, you do abstracts, you do representational work. How do you decide what to paint? What's your inspiration?
A lot of times, honestly, like I started a new painting a few days ago. My wife don't know it yet, but I started a new painting. I'm supposed to be working on this art show, but I did start a thing the other day, and I just totally started it out not knowing where it was going to take, where it was going to take me. And a lot of times I'll do that, and I'll let it kind of dictate. I do that with songs, though, too. I'll just start playing a riff and go, ooh, that's a cool lick. Ooh, look at this. If I do that with it, it does this. And it takes me, what if I slow it down? Ooh, that's even better. What if I add this, So I'll just kind of, and I do that with a painting. I'll just start putting paint on a canvas just to cover it up, just to get it going. And then sometimes I'll do, it depends on my mood, but sometimes I will do a wipe away method, kind of thing with oils. I'll do a underpainting, and then I'll wipe away method kind of thing. And then I'll just go, wow, that's cool. That almost looks like okay. And then I'll start chasing that for a minute.
Well, you're also, as a musician, you have by necessity a little bit of an itinerant existence. You're traveling all over the place. You must have an influence on your subjects, right?
No question about it. And in fact, this painting, we're looking at this booklet here, a rough, but I'm looking at this painting that was inspired by a trip I did to the Aleutian Islands, believe it or not, of all things. We played a show there on this island called Shimia. And that's totally inspired that painting right there, and that's a whole nother story.
And I'm gonna actually get to that one in a minute, because I think this painting is just so incredibly fascinating.
Thank you.
We're speaking with the visual artist and renowned country music entertainer Steve Wariner. His art exhibition, The Flip Side, runs June 21st to July 26, 2026 at the MAC. We'll be back after this important message.
Mac Talk is supported in part by Mont Haven's very own Heritage Music Series. The series celebrates artists who shape music across genres and generations. Occurring monthly, these performances offer a rare chance to hear the voices and stories behind the songs that define our popular culture. Our next Heritage Music concert is June 25th, 2026, and features none other than today's guest, Steve Wariner. For more information and tickets, go to monthavenarts.org/events.
We're back with visual artist and country music entertainer Steve Wariner. Let me ask you a little bit about your process. What is your process? You've done for years watercolor, but now you're also doing oils. What is the process of actually putting, the color on a canvas or on paper? What is your process? Because they're different too, right?
They are different, and it depends on the day and what. Like I say, some days I have a vision up front. And I know I want to do a Western scene. This is going to be I got Wyoming, which we love Wyoming. I love it. We have Wyoming on our brain, and so So I think, okay, this is going to be maybe some wild horses, maybe whatever, brushy landscape. So I'll do an underpainting, and then now sometimes I'll do this, and this is, I don't know where I got this from. I really don't remember where this came from, but sometimes I'll have a canvas, and I use these acrylic markers. It's acrylic paint, but it's in a marker form, and I use a certain kind. I don't remember the brand, but it's actually just acrylic paint. Mm-hmm. And I'll actually sketch out. I'll just start doodling and sketching out in my mind what I want. Two horses coming through this valley, this whatever, and I'll start sketching. And then I'm liking once I get it where I like it, it's acrylic, so it's already dry. And then I'll go back and once it's dry, then I'll go back and do an underpainting, I'll cover it with I use a certain kind of iron oxide paint that makes a real orangey glow, and then I'll let it set about couple hours.
Your colors are very striking. Do you make your own colors?
I do, yeah, mostly.
So you're not just right out of the tube.
No. I used to do that, but it's funny. I can look at paintings that I did that now and go, oh, I did that. Why did I use that black or that Payne's gray? That Payne's gray Mars black straight out of the tube. But after I do an underpainting, I can still see my drawing sketch vaguely underneath the underpainting. And then now this is the part. Sometimes I'll go that way, go left or right. But sometimes I'll start wiping away with paper towels. I'll wipe out the sky or just kind of sketching on top of my undersketch. And then I'll let that dry for a little bit. Then I'll start adding colors on top of that. And then it just starts coming to life. You can see that underpainting sneaking through. And John, I never even did oils before 2020. I never did an oil painting in my life. I dabbled in it maybe a couple times, but I really didn't do oils much before 2020. You were doing
watercolors mostly,
yeah,
right?
Mostly.
Which is interesting because watercolor is so unforgiving.
Oh my gosh. To me, watercolors are way harder for me, to be honest. I mean, and I look back and always in my mind as a younger me used to think, yeah, watercolors, that's a lot easier than, it's on paper but it's really, to me, it's more, it's harder. I mean, you better be ready for watercolors because you don't make mistakes on that. And there's a guy, Joseph Z, that I follow with watercolors. He's an Australian watercolors that's my favorite, and he's unbelievable. So I really kind of admire him and look up to him watercolor wise. But then back to the oil. Once I get the colors going, and then what I love about it is there's little specks and pieces that I leave of the underpainting showing through, and it's not always stark, but I like you can see it, and you can tell that and a lot of times the harmony of some of those colors with that orange oxide underneath, the harmony starts to happen, and then you're working on the values, and I've read a quote the other day I love. I think it was Monet that said this. I'm not sure if somebody said it, but one of the masters, and value does all the work, but what is it? Value does all the work, but the color gets all the credit, or something to that effect. Value does all the work.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Well, how often do you paint? Do you do the work?
Well, I've been busy lately, obviously, with this show coming up. I've not painted near as much as I wanted to, but I try to paint every day. Generally, I do. I think I paint most every day.
And you have a studio at your
I have an art studio and a recording studio. Okay. I'm so blessed, and that's embarrassment of riches there a little bit. But so I have our pool house which we don't really use anymore. The kids are all gone, and the pool sits there vacant, really anymore. But our pool house kind of turned into my art studio over the years. My mom and dad used to stay there when they came down, but after they were both gone, it sort of just turned into my art studio. And my wife is so wonderful to not argue with me about it or go, what are you doing? You're taking over every space of this house. And with your art and stuff. She's been great about that because I have done that. And she's a quilter and very creative in her own right. So a lot of times I'll be painting and she'll be up making a wonderful, unbelievable quilt, So we're both doing creative things. And then I have the recording studio we built that in 2001, and it's a lot of records have been made.
You have your own record company too, don't
you?
We
do.
Your own label.
We do have our own label, Select Tone, capital T on tone. But and my last projects in my studio, that are the last projects that Jerry Reed, the great Jerry Reed, ever did, was in my studio. We've had Brian White out there. We've had cool players and people record there, but it's at our home. And but so most days these days, though, unless I'm writing or working in the studio on a particular project, I'm painting. I mean, my joke is I go left or right. I'm going left to paint, And so do I record today but I co-write a lot. So sometimes I'll have writers come out and we'll hang out in the studio. It's a good environment to write. Mm-hmm. And then we'll turn around when we write something and just start putting it down to record it, right there. But so I'm out painting almost every day. I did last couple of days I haven't, but in the mornings I'll get up. My routine usually is have coffee, eat a bite, and then second cup, walk out to the studio and look at what I've been working on, or dabble while I'm having coffee, maybe touch up a few things and work a little bit, listening to classical music usually.
Writers are like that too. They will revisit what they maybe been writing
yesterday.
The day before. And sometimes they'll maybe even say, okay, this is gone.
That's what I say too. When I went to bed, I go, God, that painting is going to be so great. Next morning with my coffee, I go, ugh, what was I thinking? What in the world was that? And then Karen, sometimes my wife comes out and she'll go, I don't know about that one. And I go, it's going to get better, I promise, Or maybe it won't, possibly not. But it does, like songs, it'll go through an ugly phase before it gets better. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, you've just taken up, or just in the last 6 years or so, taken up oils. Do you spend more time on oils and acrylics than you do on watercolors?
Certainly, yeah. Oils is about all I do now, and I do. I every now and then though I'll just get the urge, because my passion and my roots really are watercolor. So I keep stashes of everything. Right. I'm not a hoarder, I don't think, but I do keep stashes of really nice watercolor. I usually have 5 or 6 or 8 nice big sheets of beautiful watercolor paper, and every now and then I'll just go, I got to put some water on this piece of paper and I'll usually, it's funny, it's kind of a new tradition of mine. If I watercolor, I go out to my recording studio in my little kitchen, and paint at the table. So my watercolor is separate from all the other junk. So
I was just curious, because I often think I know painters who specialize in watercolor, and they often remind me of jazz musicians, because they work kind of quickly, and they put something down that's inspired from them. And then the oil and acrylic painters remind me of the composers of classical composers, because they're they've written something and now they have to orchestrate it.
Wow,
and then they
that's
go
so great.
and they spend days or weeks or months reworking something, and no, this really ought to be for the piccolo and not the flute.
That's great. I like that.
And as you're laying textures onto your acrylics and onto your oils, it just kind of makes me think,
wow,
this is just a different approach. It's a different mindset.
It's true on that, because watercolors for me, here's what my method with watercolors, I usually have something in mind most times what I'm going to do. So I'll either have a photograph or something, but it's funny you're saying that with jazz, because it's like getting to a gig and you go, okay, we're going to start at 9. Or whatever, 10. Uh-huh. That's kind of what I do. So I get out to my studio, I lay out my paper, and I go, okay, here's my brushes I'm going to use. I got water, that's my spritzer. Mm-hmm. I'll get my hair dryer ready here. I got some Frisket. I lay it all out. I got a eraser, I got pencils, it's all like a here. And then I go, okay, go. Boom, 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 jazz, Right, yeah. And then you go, and then you're working fast, like you say, John. You're working, okay, spritz, okay, here's that. It's so if I have it all readily but it's opposite with oils, because with oils you just go, okay, I'll come back to that. Let me put this layer below, because I know later I'm going to come over the top of it with these textures, and that color will match. That's going to be underneath it. So you're thinking down the road a little bit. You don't have to do it now. I'm thinking, next week or whenever. But I'll go ahead and get these values laid down, and then
I have to wonder how much of it, when you're doing the watercolor, how much of it is just instinct too. I think I mentioned this before, when the great jazz pianist Brad Mehldau was improvising, people say, what are you thinking about? He says, well, I mean, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just doing it. It's like I'm not thinking about driving when I'm driving. That's what jazz is,
right? That's what
it's
it
like
is.
If I'm thinking about, I better put my foot on the gas pedal here or I'm on the brake here. I mean, I'm going to crash.
I'm not thinking of anything.
I'm
that's
just
a real
it.
freedom too to
I'm
do
just
that.
Doing it. That's what he's.
That's a beautiful thing about putting down a brush stroke, and you don't even know what it's. You just go like that, and you go, oh man, and then you go, well,
and then that takes you to the next
chord
or the next brush stroke.
The next chord is the other the harmony of those colors. You go, oh, what if I did this blue right here? Look at those two together. So that's that augmented chord against the root chord, and that's so, the parallels blow me away of music and art. It's funny, Chet Atkins used to say, when I was working with him, he used to do a song at his show when I played bass in his band, and I jokingly always said, the guitar position was already taken, but there were two great guitar players in that band. I played bass for a long time and I loved every second, but Chet he said, well, we know we have some Southerners in the audience and we have some Northerners too, so I'm going to do Yankee Doodle and I'm going to play Dixie at the same time. And he did them simultaneously. And I worked it up. I can do it too. But he actually plays the two melodies at the same time.
That's very Charles Ives-like.
Now I got to look Charles Ives up.
Yeah,
please.
Definitely.
Yes.
He was a great American.
Was he that brain that
He was a great American classical composer from the late 19th, early 20th century who spent most of his life working as a very wealthy insurance executive. Wow. Because he thought if you actually wrote music for a living, it would compromise your standards. So he would write like these two different marching bands that would be coming from vision. They're coming from different areas. What would they sound like if they cross paths? And he did all sorts of crazy things.
It was funny with Chet though on this. He would say, "Now the show, we I don't want to take up all your time, so to appease both audiences, the Northerners and Southerners, I'll just do these together. It's to save time." And then he would say, "And folks, let me tell you, while I'm doing this," he goes, "I'll tell you," he goes, "I'm actually thinking of two things at once, of course." And he goes, "Well, actually, I'm thinking of three things because I'm thinking of these two melodies and I'm thinking of girls." Wow. That's what he was. And I'm thinking of girls at the same time. So I'm thinking of three things. I'm doing three things at once.
It sounds like a brilliant piece. I probably would have called it Pickett's Charge, where the North and South collide.
Exactly. That's perfect.
So let me ask you, because I love your stuff. Who are your artistic influences?
Well, I go back. We talked about this when we first met. I always loved I was drawn to the illustrators as a younger guy. Norman Rockwell. I was just fascinated with what he did and all the magazine covers, and I used to try to draw like that. In fact, I thought early on I might even be an illustrator or study and go to school, be an illustrator or a cartoonist even. I love Mad Magazine. I love, Jack Davis and all those.
And which your brother David's done.
Which my brother, because probably a lot of it was him because he was doing that later. That's what he did do. But I remember looking at Maxfield Parrish and just going jaw dropping, going, "Oh my gosh, look at those!"
I have a huge print of Daybreak in my house. Maxfield Parrish's
so jealous.
Daybreak.
That's
love that
Maxfield
artist.
Parrish, and then of course the Wyeths, and gosh, I don't know, Sargent. I just love all that stuff. I don't, it's cliche, and you're supposed to say Vincent van Gogh and those artists, Monet and all that, but it's so true. I think I told you, I was looking at Starry, Starry Night one day and just had tears in my eyes up at the Met one time. And I look over and a good friend of mine from Nashville would stand there right beside me, and I go, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing here?" But I'm moved by Vincent van Gogh work, and of course, I was in Frankfurt, Germany one time with Chad. We were playing in Europe, and Paul Yandel and I were walking the streets, just kind of going for a walk, and we didn't speak or read German, but there was a big thing that just said blah 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 whatever Leonardo, and I go, oh my gosh, we have to go in here. This might be an art museum because it looked like it, and we went in, and it was a Leonardo da Vinci exhibit that had a lot of his books and under glass, but you could see his drawings and things. And we were like, oh my gosh.
Talk about
we just walked up on it. We just walked in,
grief.
Had a lot of his famous works out of notebooks and stuff, his notebooks that you've seen him, we've all seen through the years. And but anyway, a lot of I love it all. I mean, I love everything from the cartoonists and Mad all the way up to like a Monet or Pissarro, or we talked about Vermeer. I'm fascinated with that camera obscura stuff he was doing in the 16th century.
You mentioned some of the like Western art that you might try. I was talking with our announcer Kennedy, who is a wonderful artist. We were looking at some of the things in the program book, and one piece that really riveted her was called Getting It, which is a rider on a horse. But she was also noting, this particular artist strikes me as kind of impressionistic in style.
That's so cool to hear that.
And I was thinking, there is some of that. I mean, not in everything, but it's certainly in some of these really wonderful oils. This guy is kind of a modern day impressionist. How do you feel about that? Being called a modern day impressionist. What a compliment.
Oh my gosh.
And that's from an artist. Another artist looking at you.
That's what oh my gosh. I'm so flattered. But I think what a compliment. I never thought of it in those terms, but I do. Some of my pieces, I wouldn't thought that one, but I'm thinking about back on the technique, what would make it that way, but it wasn't in my mind.
And that also makes me ask you, what's your formal training? Because I don't think the ordinary artist could do that.
I don't know. That's so funny.
Okay, well that's good. That's so okay funny. Too. I'm sure Beethoven probably didn't know where some of those melodies came from.
I'm not great explaining. I don't think sometimes. I just, I saw Paul McCartney talks about songwriting, and the way he says it. I'm by no means would compare with anybody, but I love the way he talks about songwriting. He says, I sometimes want to hear the deeper meaning of what that song means. And he goes, this word just sounded good with that word, and it's so simplistic the way he talks about songwriting. I love it.
I love the fact that he's probably the greatest musician of the last 100 years. And he doesn't read music.
I know it.
Isn't that the most amazing thing?
Yeah, he goes, no, I don't read.
But that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm sure
you've done okay.
I'm sure Homer didn't really, read music or even probably was literate, but he sure could write the best stuff.
Totally, exactly. You just do it and do it and do it. But Paul, his simplistic, what he says, his explanation is, well, I thought of this line and then I just kept trying to think of a word that would rhyme. And he said it just rolled off my tongue and it felt good.
Right.
So you know what tells me, John, a lot of times the way I approach art is a lot of people think of art as it's stuff that you see, and then you think of music as things you hear, but in both cases it's things that you feel, more than you see or hear.
That is so insightful, because I know Paul McCartney, his first musical experiences was lying on the floor in his house as a kid, listening to his father play piano and feeling the vibrations of the music. So how is he able to take 6 chords, which he'll show you on his keyboard? He'll take 6 chords and he'll create a masterpiece song from it on the piano, because he just fixed, and then he said, and we don't need any more.
Yeah,
these cards are good enough, and we can write a masterpiece.
Well, I've read something.
Let it be, or Hey Jude.
You go, oh my God! And I've read something, Paul, yesterday, and he was saying, he was advice to young people, writers, artists, whatever, and he was saying, don't get hung up on gadgets and whiz bang things and just write a song and sing it, just perform it. You don't need all the cosmetic bells and whistles and I love that. It's simple. I think going back to the art though, I think it goes back to getting it, that painting. I think I just start kind of dabbling with it, and then you just go, oh, that's cool if I do this. Oh, what if I do that? So I don't really even know what I'm doing, to be honest. I think I just go, oh, that looks kind of cool. If I put this color with that color, that looks pretty interesting. And so just trying to do something that looks interesting and cool, and so it's very simplistic, but...
Yeah, I'm a fan of instrumental music, and so probably because of that, I also like abstract art.
Yeah,
they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it is totally.
So I have just been absolutely riveted by Shemya, which is this piece that you did by visiting one of the Aleutian Islands in the Bering Sea.
Yes.
The everything about this is, and I'll have this in our blog so people can see it. It is just a virtuoso study in color.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
And in contrasting colors. And I would just wonder if you could speak to it for a minute or two about what inspired this and how you decided to depict it this way. Because obviously this is how, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking this is how this island makes you feel.
Interesting. This tour, I was on a tour, and this is actually a landing for me. It's silly, but it's, I shouldn't say silly, but it's so abstract concept, but I think of our landing coming into this little island that is about a mile, almost not even over 2 miles, this little island. If you drove over, it's so tiny. And back then, this was in the 80s, it was a radar installation. We were spying on Russia is all it was, and Cobra Dane, and we landed there. We left Kodiak. We played Kodiak the night before. I'd already toured a bunch of Alaska, flying a C-130 with the Alaska Air National Guard. Okay. And when we left Kodiak, we played for the Coast Guard there. We took off, and I sat in on the takeoff, and they invited me to come up and sit on the C-130. Everybody else was in back, about 30 people. We had a camera crew, and it was a cargo C-130, no seats. Everybody sat strapped in on the floor, and it was cold. Yet everybody had mucklucks and boots and all that stuff on, and because it was cold. And I went up and sat in the cockpit, and we took off, and we were headed to Shemya Island next. There was about 100 people there. By the way, that we were the Beatles and Elvis put together when we landed, because they'd never seen people from back home for over a year or two.
Wow.
They thought we were, nobody plays here ever. We never see anybody. But anyway, so we had enough fuel to go elsewhere because the weather changes so drastically. So they already... Atuk, I think, was the other island that we were, when we got close enough to approach, if the weather was so drastic, we were going to go to this other island and not land there. And so that was interesting to me, because I thought, oh my gosh, this landing is going to be interesting. We don't even know if we can land. And so we get close, and we start coming in for a landing. And there's nothing there really but a few barracks and one strip. That's all it was on this island. And when you land, there's little foxes, little Arctic foxes all running around and coming up to you. And so as we're approaching, we're like 30 miles out or so, and I'm sitting there with Dave, the pilot, and you could look out the windshield, John, and you could not see anything. It looked like that. It was white, just like a white canvas. So he's totally doing instruments. He looked at me, this pilot looked at me, and he said, well, I'm going to earn my money today on this landing. And I was like, and so I watched him, and they gave us the signal. The navigator back there said, yeah, we're clear to land. Yeah, go to so far. So, they were telling him what maneuvers to make. And he was totally not, I was watching him, and he was totally not even looking out of the windshield. He was watching instruments and totally was just landing this plane with the instruments, and I'm sitting there nervous wreck, of course. And so that's when he made the comment, I'm earning my money. And he was just, and I was looking out the windshield, couldn't see anything, I know I could feel we were coming down. And then all of a sudden the clouds broke, I saw rocks, water, and then we just did that and landed. And it was, so to me, this Shemya And that day I was so tired. We'd been touring for about a week, and I was so tired I wanted to go to my barrack and lay down. And as soon as we landed, the commander of the base walked up and said, "Well, I hope you want to see the base because I got a Jeep ready for us. We're going to give you a tour." And my eyeball, I was so tired. I wanted to, and so everybody else, all the guys were laughing, going, "We'll see you later." And I did a tour with the commander of the base, and everybody else went and took a nap. And then for another hour, let me show you over here. And it was wonderful, though. I loved it.
It's called the VIP treatment.
It was. And here's a hat for you, and we did that every base. But for me, this painting kind of it kind of represents that last little bit of landing at Shemya, and I don't even know what's what. I just like the harmony of it and the way it feels. There's some different colors of white, too. There's some Kremnitz white and some titanium and some cool grays in there, but anyway, it's that's kind of what it is. And I thought, well, I'm just going to call this painting Shemya because it kind of reminds me of that day, So,
well, I just feel like Monhaven is lucky to have your art and this.
Thank you.
In our exhibit. I mean, I would expect to see this at the Met or the Frist or some other place. So we feel really honored.
I really appreciate it. That means a lot. And my abstract stuff, I've said this before. I do that particular part of what I do art-wise is for me more than, I'm tickled when people love it, but that is just, I love to just get out. I'll just put my overalls on and just start messing with just abstract and thinking abstract, and usually it's large. And I have no idea where it's going to go, but I just start drawing from different ideas and past things. But I love that. And I always expect people to go, "What in the world is that? What is that?" But I just love doing the abstract stuff. It is so therapeutic for me, and I can do it all day long. I just love it. And a lot of times I love paper. I said I collect a lot of things, and I collect a lot of paper and rice paper and Japanese paper, and I have a big stash of it. And a lot of times I'll layer that in different kinds of paper, and it's so therapeutic and fun. And then the icing is when people like yourself, when you say, "I really like this piece," or "That's striking to me." I
love this piece, and I look at it and I think, well, this guy has perfect pitch for color.
That's sort of great.
Maybe you have synesthesia. I don't know.
I wish I did, but
because that's.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Let me ask you about one more piece. You have one image that I love. It's sort of almost a mix of abstract and representation. It's Lower East Side looking at Brooklyn.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about that? It's a haunting image in some ways.
That piece came about. It's funny. It's so funny on that piece. It was totally inspired by the 2020, the coronavirus and the New York City. I have a lot of family that was in New York City, still there. My son Jason, my stepson, and his family, my grandkids, they live the Lower East Side. They've been there. He's an artist, by the way, a brilliant designer and artist, and in his own right. Went to Memphis School of Art and graduated at Columbia, and he's got a great story. Jason, he's brilliant. But that was inspired, and our youngest son Ross lived in Williamsburg, so he had Lower East Side, look across the river, and there's Williamsburg. You got the two. We had family here, family there, and so one day I was looking for. It was one of those days that I didn't have anything in mind to paint, but I knew I wanted to paint a large. I had the urge, and I do this sometimes. I don't know what I'm doing, but I got to find a large canvas and put paint on it today. I just have that urge. And so I was looking for a large canvas, could not find one anywhere. And so I look in my shower. If you look in my pool house, if you walk in the bathroom, there's a shower in there, and I keep a curtain. I just have stacks of old paintings and canvas and stuff in there. So I start pulling out, and I found this junky old thing that I'd painted on. It's not a great canvas, to be quite honest, but I pulled that out, and it's large, and it had some stuff already on it. And so I pulled it out, and I go, "Yep, this is the victim today." So I put it up on my easel, and I just started. I took some kind of squeegee or something, and I just started making these marks, and I go, "Oh, it looks like buildings almost. And then I kind of went, I did some windows and I go, oh, that looks cool against that, what was already there. And I just started doodling and making marks. And then I put some more paper down. And then I go, well, this looks like Lower East Side. If I did some blue right here, oh my gosh. And then I just kept going. And then I started thinking about where I was headed with it. And I thinking, well, this reminds me of the Lower East Side looking at Brooklyn. If I did this and made this, and so anyway, I may not explain this well, but the more I doodled with it, I just kept thinking of there those kids are in New York City during all this shutdown. And we had Karen, my wife, her cousin he just got his medical license and became a doctor in 2020. And so he was a doctor resident at Cornell Medical. And so, it is Cornell, I believe. Yeah. And so he was, we were talking to him through quarantine, and you couldn't even believe the things he really got exposed to the real world of the medical world during that. And so all this culmination of all these of our family that was going through this in New York. And so the more I worked on it, the more I thought of that, and it just kept going toward that. And it turned out to be Lower East Side looking at Brooklyn in 2020, which as this piece of art, but it's on not a great canvas. So I thought, well, I couldn't have picked a cheaper, crappier piece of canvas to do this on, but it's all I can find. So, okay. But that's the story on that. And the more I worked on it, the more and I really didn't think much about it. We were looking at art for this show, and someone saw, that was one that was kind of stashed away. I wasn't even thinking of it for the show. And somebody saw that, and they, that's got to be in the show. And so I pulled it out. And they really liked it. So we included it. And it's one that people seem to like a lot, so it just became part of the show.
That makes sense. We're speaking with the visual artist and renowned country music entertainer, Steve Wariner. His art exhibition, The Flip Side, runs June 21st to July 26, 2026 at the MAC. We'll be back after this important message.
Mont Haven's Heritage Music Series is proud to support Mac Talk. The Heritage Music Series features trailblazing songwriters and chart-topping musicians performing in intimate Bluebird Cafe-style concerts. Concert goers enjoy live music, cocktails, and a Southern-inspired meal, all rooted in the spirit of Mont Haven's heritage. For more information about the series, go to monthavenarts.org/heritage.
We're back with visual artist and country music entertainer Steve Wariner. Well, one last question. You have this exhibit here, The Flip Side. It's going to run from June 21st, Father's Day, to July 26th. What do you hope people who come to visit the show and see the show, what do you hope they get from it? What do you hope they take away?
Well, I hear this a lot. I hear this, sometimes I hear this, I know your music, but I didn't know you painted, Okay. And so that's what I want to do, just the light bulb to go off. Maybe people go, oh, that's cool. I see the relationships of music and art, and I see the carryover, and I understand the flip side, So kind of a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, to see what I do when I am not doing music. And, and I hope they enjoy it. I hope, I always say I don't ever expect to make a living doing art, but because I don't want to give up my day job, music stuff, but I sure enjoy it. It's a passion for sure. And I just hope they come away and learn something about it and see my flip side, so.
Okay. Well, Steve Wariner, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, John. Really good to be with you.
You've been listening to Mac Talk from Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center. Our mission is to educate, elevate, and encourage our community through the transformative power of the arts. If you're interested in transforming your creative life, check out our website at monthavenarts.org. Our guest today was the visual artist and legendary music entertainer, Steve Wariner. His art exhibition, The Flip Side, runs June 21st to July 26, 2026 at the MAC. Steve is also headlining a Heritage Music Series concert at the MAC on June 25th, 2026. For more information and tickets, go to monthavenarts.org/events. Our podcast music was written by Nashville composer Christina Spinay. I'm Kennedy Alpin. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.